but we need to talk about Galen Rupp. He's the guy people were looking at going in 3 weeks out from the Olympic marathon trials. He runs 62:37, 14th place. Never really tried to run with the leaders. The idea of him trying to unlock that third spot by running a fast half marathon, he never really went for it. I don't know. I look at this, I'm like, all right, it's fine. I don't think it's not that fast for Rupp. It's only 15 seconds faster than the women's world record, but I don't know. He might be in the middle of like a 130-mile week and he's getting ready for the trials. So my takeaway is it's kind of hard to know what to make of this without knowing the whole context. But I'm not saying like, oh man, he totally bombed. He's not going to make the team. What do you guys think?
I agree. You can't say he totally bombed. He's not going to make the team, but this was sort of on the back end of what I would call a decent performance by him. It's not like he ran 104, but John, you said he's 15 seconds ahead of the women's world record. I mean, that's kind of touches on what we were talking about before, how crazy fast some of these women's road times are getting.
I thought he'd run faster, and he wasn't on the screen for very much of the race, so it's kind of hard to tell. But he looked like he was hurting. He was grimacing, the final 100 meters that he was actually shown on the broadcast. But I would have said if he's anything under 62, like, cool, book him on the team. This is like a little bit slower, but again, we don't know the full context.
And the splits weren't good. I mean, it was into the wind at the end, but you said, John, this is from your article, 1441, 1430. Okay, so he picks it up. Maybe that's into with the wind. 1507, 1517.
Yeah, the last 5K was into the wind, most of it. The 1507 before that, though, that wasn't as much into the wind. That would be a little concerning if you're going to be concerned.
And we'll talk about kind of first look at the Olympic marathon trials in a minute, but am I leaving him off my team because of this? No. Am I still probably putting him on my team? I think so.
Look, we devoted a whole podcast on Friday to talk about Rupp. When I was preparing for this podcast today, I did a lot of research on Rupp. When I saw this time on Sunday, I thought, wow, that's the back end of what that's about as slow. Like on Friday, I'm like, he's on the team. When I heard he was racing, when I read his pre-race quotes in the David Monti article, I'm like, he's on the team. And I'm like, Sarah Hall is not on the team. Then I actually read Jonathan Gault's article on Sarah Hall and said she's in good shape. So I didn't totally back off. Maybe she has some chance, but I was so harsh to her on Friday. But when I saw this time, I was like, man, that makes me a little bit nervous. But ultimately, I trust Galen Rupp, the greatest long-distance talent in U.S. history. I know he's getting older. Father Time was undefeated. But let's go back to these pre-race quotes. That's the thing, though. He was talking so big. This has been on the schedule for a while, so I'm really looking forward to being here. It's my first time to racing. This is a time to get in a real hard race effort. I think all the marathoners here dropping down to run the half are deep into training, kind of at the end of a real heavy block of training. I think this is going to prepare me really well for when it's time to run the marathon. So he admits to being in a huge block of training. This is not a fresh Galen Rupp. But go back 3 years ago, he was running 3 weeks before the trials. He was running 61:19. Admittedly, it was a downhill course. Do we know how much downhill that was 4 years ago?
I don't know. I don't think that's that important. But my takeaway here, Robert, is it does, like, if you're going to criticize here and say, like, oh, it is time to be worried, I think your logic would be the following. Ahead of Chicago, he was talking quite confidently, said training's going well, things were going well. The race was going well for a while. He was on track to get the Olympic stand for a while. And then he faded, he petered out, he didn't get the standard, he finished as the third American. And you could look at Houston and see something similar, that first half of this race went well. He was talking, ahead of the race, he felt pretty good about where he's at. Granted, he said he wasn't in, tip-top half marathon shape. And then the second half of the race, he faded. And some of that was into the wind, but some of it wasn't. So if you're going to be concerned, it would be that yes, he feels good about what he's accomplished, but his last couple of races, he has slowed down fairly significantly towards the end.
But the interesting thing with Rupp is, and this has been posted on the message board as well, great thread on Rupp on the message board. no real correlation between his half marathon success and the marathon. In fact, it might even be negative correlation. Like 2017, April 1, Rupp runs the Prague half. He runs 61:59. 16 days later, he wins the Boston Marathon. Finishes second in the Boston Marathon. 2000, the next year, he runs 59:47 in his half before Boston, March 11th. What does he do in Boston? Drops out.
Well, yeah, that was the insane storm year, though. I give everyone who dropped out of that race a pass.
But
Don't ruin his narrative, John. Don't ruin his narrative, please.
2021, Rupp ran 4 weeks out from Chicago. He ran 61:52 in the half. Runs 2:06:35 in Chicago. Now, admittedly, he's significantly slower than this, but he's no longer a lock for me. But I still think I'm going to pick him. But it's a little bit concerning. But that gets me to 2 message board posts that I love, both from Supporters Club members. By the way, if you're not a Supporters Club member, join the Supporters Club today. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. We've got a bonus podcast, extra forum features, access to all articles, shoe discounts, free shirt, much more. John Wesley Harding said, I don't think he's a dark horse to make the team at all. He ran 2:08:48 3 months ago. He's made so many U.S. teams. He's the best gamer in U.S. distance running history. Obviously, he's not the athlete he was 10 years ago, but today's race wasn't really a bad sign. This is in the point of the marathon build-up when it's difficult to run a half much faster than your goal marathon pace. He ran the second 5K at 61 low pace, and that was too hot for him at this moment in training. But it's sort of a good sign that when he was hurting in the later stages of the races, he was still trucking along at 2:08 marathon pace, a pace that's probably deeply ingrained in automatic. There are exceptions to the rule, but many marathoners, especially of Rupp's age, become real grinders whose legs are tethered down by their 120 miles per week, except for twice a week when they take the taper and the chains come off. I would not be surprised if 3 weeks from now, Rupp is able to cook off 15-10 5Ks quite comfortably, putting him very much in contention to make the team or even win. Best of luck to him. I get fonder of these guys when they reach their upper 30s and have had their share of setbacks. I like that logic. I trust Rupp in the marathon. Am I fully confident? No. I mean, the reality is, and I also posted this on the message boards, is, someone was like, oh, someone had some formula. You slow him down by 3%. He's going to run 2:08. He's going to make the team. By the way, I think if he's in the same shape that he was in Chicago, he could still make the team. It's probably not good enough. I think he's going to be a little bit better than that. But there were 4 Americans that beat him in this race. B.S. Mbassa ran 60:45. Diego Estrada ran 60:49. Andrew Colley 61:39. And Ryan Johnson 62:31. Unheralded Ryan Johnson. I was asking, well, do you think our dad had another kid out there? Like this guy, never heard of, has our last name. He was like running the regional meet last year in college in 10K. Now he's beating Galen Rupp. What a scalp that is.
He must be related to you guys. Johnson's such a rare name that I have to assume he's related some way.
Yeah, Andrew Colley just beat Rupp by a 1.5-minute marathon, and we're trying to pawn this off as a good performance. No.
I'm not trying to pawn it off as a good performance. I'm saying it's worrisome enough that we're having this conversation about it. But Galen Rupp has accomplished he gets more benefit of the doubt in this situation than the average runner, with his track record of putting it together at the Olympic trials.
Oh, it's not a good performance at all. It's like the last, about as slow as I would be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But as I posted on the message board, someone says, slow him down. He Rupp's on the team. He's exactly where he needs. This is not exactly what he needs. No, that's a lie. Rupp is not the same runner that he was 4 years ago. But I was like, if this is exactly where he needs, then what about the 4 guys that beat him? Are they all going to be in the team too? So we're going to send 5 to Paris, even though we're only guaranteed 2. But, if you want to critique the other guys, B.S. Mbassa, he always runs. He ran 60-45 in Valencia. Well, guess what? He always runs 60 something around that time. He ran 60-37 in Valencia in 2022, 60-42 in Valencia in 2023, and now he runs 60-45. He's never broken 2:10 in the marathon. Diego Estrada, he's 34 now. He's never broken 2:11 in the marathon. He's had a lot of cracks at it. Andrew Colley, yeah, he beat Rupp by more than a minute, but he's never broken 2:11 in the marathon. So Rupp is a proven marathoner. He's a proven gamer.
Okay, yeah, I think we've made this point several times. The other result I wanted to discuss here was Diego Estrada, because I saw him at the front of the race. He has a very distinctive running style.